Guys, welcome back to Crimson Rift Africa, where we explore the most disturbing, often overlooked stories from across the continent. If you're new here, this is the place where history, horror, and humanity collide, unfiltered, raw, and deeply African. Today we dive into 5 chilling cases involving athletes whose lives of talent, fame, and promise were tragically shattered, revealing the dark side of love, domestic violence, and the dangers that can hide behind closed doors. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The following stories involve real-life events, including violence and tragedy. Viewer discretion is advised. This content is intended for educational and awareness purposes, highlighting issues such as domestic violence, personal safety, and systemic accountability. Let's get into today's cases. Across Africa, the world of sports has celebrated incredible talent, grit, and determination. But behind the medals and records, some athletes face danger far closer than any competition. From Botswana to Kenya and South Africa, these 5 stories reveal how fame, love, and personal relationships can turn deadly, and how survival, loss, and justice shape the lives left behind. She was a rising star in Botswana's basketball scene, a national team player celebrated for her athleticism and determination. But in 2009, at the age of 29, her life took a tragic and unexpected turn. In a moment of profound betrayal and violence, her promising journey would be shattered in a way no one could have anticipated. Malebogo Molefhe was born in 1980 in Manyana, a village south of Gaborone, Botswana. Raised in a supportive family environment, she developed discipline and resilience from a young age. Growing up, Malebogo attended local schools, excelling both academically and athletically. Her passion for sports, particularly basketball, became evident early. She was a natural leader, often serving as a role model to her peers. These formative years laid the foundation for her future in sports and advocacy. By the age of 18, Malebogo began playing basketball professionally. Her exceptional skills earned her a spot on the Botswana national team. Over the years, she became a celebrated figure, admired for her athleticism, determination, and leadership. Her achievements inspired countless young athletes across the country. Yet her personal life faced challenges that would culminate in tragedy. In 2009, she was in a relationship with her then-boyfriend, a former Army officer. Their relationship, which began with shared interests and affection, grew increasingly toxic, marked by frequent arguments and emotional abuse. Despite the challenges, she hoped for improvement. On April 27, 2009, during a particularly intense argument, her partner shot her 8 times. Each bullet tore through her body, leaving her struggling to breathe, her vision blurred, and her mind racing with pain and disbelief. Miraculously, one of the bullets misfired, sparing her life. Immediately after, he turned the weapon on himself, ending his own life. Paramedics arrived moments later, finding Malebogo critically injured, barely conscious and bleeding heavily. Time blurred as they stabilized her, monitored her vital signs, and rushed her to the hospital. At the hospital, she was whisked into surgery. Her gunshot wounds caused catastrophic internal damage and a spinal cord injury that would forever alter her mobility. Over the following weeks, she underwent multiple surgeries and intensive rehabilitation. Yet through every setback, her resilience shone. The police conducted a thorough investigation, confirming the sequence of events and classifying the attack as intimate partner violence. The findings were consistent with what became locally known as a passion killing, a violent act committed in the heat of intense emotional conflict. Malebogo has not publicly disclosed the motive behind the attack, though she later shared that the relationship had become increasingly abusive. As she regained strength, Malebogo reflected on her life, her career, and the circumstances that led to the attack. Malebogo became an outspoken advocate against gender-based violence, partnering with government agencies and NGOs to raise awareness, educate young people, and mentor female athletes. She promoted participation for women and individuals with disabilities, organizing events and workshops to inspire confidence and opportunity. Her efforts gained international recognition. In 2017, she received the U.S. Department of State's International Women of Courage Award. Today, Malebogo continues to inspire. Through advocacy, mentorship, and pioneering efforts in wheelchair basketball, she has built a legacy far beyond the court, a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of turning tragedy into purpose. While Malebogo Molefhe's story is one of survival and turning tragedy into purpose, not all athletes are given the same chance. Across the border in Kenya, another rising star faced a dark and irreversible fate, a life cut short under circumstances that shocked the sporting world. This is the story of Agnes Tirop, a talented long-distance runner whose career and dreams were violently ended in what appeared to be a domestic dispute. October 13, 2021 began like any other morning in Eldoret, Kenya. But for one father, worry quickly turned into alarm. Multiple attempts to reach his daughter had gone unanswered. This was unusual. She had always responded promptly to his calls. Concerned for her safety, he enlisted the help of a neighbor and contacted the local police. Together, they went to her residence, a modest home on the outskirts of town. What they found inside would shock the community. The young woman lay unresponsive in her bedroom. There were clear signs of violence. Blood had soaked the mattress and dripped onto the floor. A kitchen knife was discovered nearby, and objects in the room were displaced, suggesting a struggle. There were no signs of forced entry, indicating the attacker had access to the house. The woman, known across Kenya for her prowess in athletics, was dead. Her name was Agnes Tirop, a national athlete whose records and medals had placed her in the public eye, yet whose personal life had remained largely private. Agnes Tirop was born in Kenya on 23 October 1995. Her birthplace, Uasin Gishu County in Kenya's Rift Valley, is world-renowned for producing long-distance runners. The county's capital, Eldoret, is often nicknamed the City of Champions because so many Olympic and world medalists come from the region. Agnes was the fourth of 7 children. The family lived modestly but were closely knit, relying on each other for support and stability. From a young age, Agnes showed a natural aptitude for running. A local coach recognized her talent and introduced her to more structured training. By the time she joined high school, she was officially part of her school's athletics program. Despite limited resources, including inadequate training facilities and equipment, Agnes maintained a rigorous regimen. Her dedication to athletics was consistent and disciplined. While her accomplishments were noteworthy, they were not the central focus in understanding her life. In her personal life, Agnes began a relationship with Ibrahim Rodish around 2016. Rodish was older and had experience in athletics, including coaching and management. Their relationship started professionally but evolved into a personal partnership. Over time, those close to Agnes noticed changes. Reports indicate that Rodish exhibited controlling behavior, monitoring her communications, influencing her interactions with others, and limiting her autonomy. Friends and colleagues observed her becoming withdrawn and cautious in her responses, a stark contrast to the confident demeanor she had previously displayed. In the months and years leading up to her death, Agnes's life became increasingly constrained. She attempted to distance herself from Rodish multiple times, including short stays at her family home. However, Rodish would reportedly follow her, apologize, and promise change. On the morning of October 13, 2021, Agnes did not respond to repeated calls from her father. Concerned, he enlisted a neighbor and contacted local law enforcement. Upon entering the house, police discovered her body in her bedroom. She had suffered multiple stab wounds to the neck and abdomen, with additional blunt force trauma to the head, suggesting the injuries occurred prior to the stabbing. There were no defensive wounds, implying she may have been attacked unexpectedly. The arrangement of objects in the room and the location of the knife suggested a violent struggle had occurred, yet there was no sign of forced entry, indicating familiarity between the victim and the assailant. Following the discovery, authorities secured the scene and began an investigation. Forensic teams collected evidence, including fingerprints, blood samples, and photographs of the scene. Initial analysis pointed to a personal motive, as the pattern and nature of the injuries indicated rage rather than opportunistic violence. Investigators immediately focused on individuals close to the victim. Given the lack of forced entry and prior concerns regarding her relationship, suspicion quickly centered on Rotish. He was reported missing shortly after the incident. Authorities noted that his phone was switched off and he had not returned to their shared residence. Surveillance footage from local CCTV captured him leaving the area alone in a white vehicle within hours of the murder. Kenyan police, working alongside other agencies, traced his movements from Eldoret through Kericho and eventually to Mombasa. On October 15, 2021, 2 days after the discovery of Agnes's body, law enforcement apprehended Rotish in Mombasa. He was found driving the same vehicle captured on CCTV, now dust-covered and displaying traces of dried blood. Rotish was traveling with minimal possessions, including a backpack and a passport. During the arrest, he attempted to evade officers, but was ultimately detained and transported back under tight security. Forensic analysis, combined with the witness testimonies, CCTV footage, and the discovery of the crime scene, formed the basis of the prosecution's case. In the weeks following the arrest, Kenya entered a period of national mourning. Candlelight vigils and public memorials were held in Agnes's honor. The director of public prosecutions formally charged Rotish with murder. He pleaded not guilty, claiming that the incident was a tragic accident arising from a domestic dispute. The prosecution, however, highlighted premeditation, citing his actions before and after the crime, including attempts to flee and use of multiple identities. Initially, the court denied bail due to the high risk of flight. Rotish was subsequently granted bail under strict conditions, including a requirement to remain within the county, surrender his passport, and report to police weekly. Despite initial compliance, he failed to appear in court on multiple occasions. By March 2025, an arrest warrant was issued, and authorities classified him as a fugitive. Alerts were circulated, but as of mid-2025, there had been no confirmed sightings. The investigation and legal proceedings have continued amid public scrutiny. Agnes's family, particularly her parents, remained vocal in demanding accountability. Agnes's legacy, while rooted in her athletic career, is now also associated with awareness around domestic abuse. Her funeral drew hundreds of mourners, reflecting both personal loss and national recognition of the tragedy. The case underscores the importance of prompt law enforcement response, thorough investigation, and systemic accountability. It also highlights the ongoing challenges in ensuring the safety of individuals in intimate relationships, particularly when power dynamics and controlling behavior are present. While legal proceedings remain unresolved and the primary suspect remains at large, the public and Agnes's family continue to advocate for justice. This story, while centered on a high-profile individual, reflects a broader pattern of risks faced by many. As of 2025, the case remains open. Efforts to locate Rotish continue, and the legal process is ongoing. Public engagement, media coverage, and advocacy campaigns have contributed to maintaining attention on the case and ensuring that Agnes's death is not forgotten. Agnes Tirop's tragic death highlighted the danger that can hide behind closed doors, even for those in the public eye. Just a few years later, the region would witness another brutal attack on a female athlete. Rebecca Cheptegei, a celebrated Ugandan marathoner and mother, became the next shocking example of how domestic threats can escalate into irreversible violence. On the afternoon of September 1, 2024, In the quiet town of Endebess, Kenya, the world of athletics was shattered. An urgent call to emergency services summoned police and paramedics to a scene of unimaginable horror. The events that unfolded that day would shock the nation and the global sporting community alike. Rebecca Cheptegei was born on February 22, 1991, on the Kenyan side of the Kenya-Uganda border, to Joseph and Agnes Cheptegei. She was the second of 13 siblings, and her ancestral village was Bukwo, Uganda. Growing up amid the rolling highlands, Rebecca displayed an early aptitude for endurance. She would run across hills and trails surrounding her village, a passion that would lay the foundation for a remarkable athletic career. Her dedication and talent led her to join the Uganda People's Defense Force in 2008, where she rose to the rank of sergeant. Beyond her military duties, Rebecca represented Uganda in numerous international competitions. Her achievements on the track and trails brought pride to her country, while her commitment to her family, including her two young daughters, remained unwavering. Despite her public acclaim, Rebecca's personal life had its challenges. She had previously been in a relationship with Dixon and Dima. In the days leading up to the attack, there were reports of disputes over property. Rebecca had sought protection, reporting threats to local authorities multiple times, including just 2 days prior. Tragically, her calls for help went unanswered. The day of the attack unfolded with devastating swiftness. Dixon entered Rebecca's residence carrying a jerry can of petrol. A disagreement over a land dispute escalated into unthinkable violence. He doused Rebecca with fuel and set her ablaze. Neighbors, shocked and terrified, rushed to the scene, witnessing Rebecca engulfed in flames. She ran desperately for help, with her two young daughters and younger sister witnessing the horrifying attack from within the property. The normally safe confines of her home were transformed into a scene of chaos and terror. Dixon, in the process, also sustained burns. Rebecca's injuries covered more than 80% of her body, leaving her in critical condition. Paramedics arrived swiftly, placing her on a stretcher and transporting her to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic and harrowing, filled with smoke, fire, and panic. Her daughters and sister were later provided with counseling and care to help them process the trauma of witnessing such violence. At the hospital, Rebecca was admitted directly to the intensive care unit. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her, managing severe burns, fluid loss, and the risk of infection. Despite the relentless efforts of the medical team, her condition remained critical. 4 days later, on September 5, 2024, she succumbed to her injuries. Dixon's injuries were also severe, encompassing approximately 40% of his body. Despite receiving medical attention, he developed respiratory failure and sepsis, ultimately passing away on September 9th. The brutal sequence of events stunned the nation and drew widespread condemnation. Rebecca's death was not an isolated incident. Authorities noted she was the third female athlete in Kenya to be killed by a partner since 2021, a grim reminder of the vulnerability faced by women, even those in the public eye. Her story reignited urgent conversations around domestic violence, law enforcement accountability, and protective measures for at-risk individuals. The funeral for Rebecca Cheptegei was held in her ancestral home of Bukwo, Uganda. Thousands of mourners attended to pay their respects. Military honors were observed, including a gun salute, reflecting her service in the Uganda People's Defense Force, as well as her contributions to athletics. The Ugandan government pledged support for her orphan children, providing financial stability in the wake of tragedy. Candlelight vigils, public memorials, and statements from sports organizations reinforced her legacy as an inspiration to young athletes across East Africa. International attention followed. Paris City Hall announced plans to name a sports venue in her honor, while media outlets worldwide covered her story extensively. Human rights organizations highlighted her case as emblematic of broader patterns of violence against women, particularly in environments such as professional athletics, where female athletes may face unique risks. Statistical reports underscore the severity of the issue, noting that in Kenya, approximately 34% of women aged 15 to 49 experience physical violence. Rebecca Cheptegei's legacy is now twofold. On one hand, she is remembered as an exceptional athlete whose endurance, speed, and determination brought pride to Uganda and the international sporting community. On the other, she has become a symbol in the fight against gender-based violence, a stark reminder of the consequences of unaddressed threats and systemic failures. The narrative of Rebecca's final days, the attack, and its aftermath serves as a sobering reflection on the fragility of life and the pervasive dangers faced by women worldwide. By honoring her memory and advocating for change, communities hope to ensure that her death catalyzes tangible improvements in the protection of women, offering lessons that prevent similar tragedies in the future. Rebecca Cheptegei's story remains a testament to courage, resilience, and the urgent need for systemic accountability. Her life and death continue to inspire conversations on safeguarding women, recognizing their achievements, and confronting the persistent scourge of gender-based violence, ensuring that her legacy endures beyond her athletic triumphs. While these women faced unimaginable threats in their personal lives, not all tragedies in the world of athletics are the result of domestic conflict. In Kenya, the untimely death of Olympic marathon champion Samuel Wanjiru stunned the nation and the world, sparking questions about fame, fortune, and the fragility of life behind closed doors. On the night of May 14, 2011, Samuel Wanjiru, Kenya's Olympic marathon champion, fell from the balcony of his home in Nyahururu. At just 24 years old, the world had lost a sporting icon, but the circumstances surrounding his death would spark years of debate, legal battles, and lingering questions. What really happened that night? Samuel Kamau Wanjiru was born on November 10, 1986, in Nyahururu, Laikipia County, Kenya. Raised in a modest household by his mother, Hannah Wanjiru, alongside his younger brother Simon, Samuel grew up in a world marked by financial hardship. School became a luxury he could not afford. By the age of 12, he had left formal education. Yet even in those early years, Samuel showed an extraordinary talent for running. It was a gift that would change the trajectory of his life. At 15, Samuel placed third in a national cross-country championship. That achievement caught the eye of a Japanese talent scout. He was offered the chance to train in Sendai, Japan, a city known for its elite distance running programs. There, Samuel honed his abilities, winning championships and setting records that foreshadowed his future greatness. By 2008, Samuel had reached the pinnacle of his sport. At the Beijing Olympics, he ran the marathon of a lifetime, finishing in an Olympic record time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 32 seconds. He became the first Kenyan to win gold in the Olympic marathon and the youngest champion in the event since 1932. Samuel Wanjiru was now a household name, a national hero, and a symbol of hope for countless aspiring athletes. Yet behind the glory, Samuel's personal life was complicated. In 2005, he entered a come-and-stay arrangement with Teresa and Jerry, who moved into his family home with the approval of his mother. Their relationship was tense from the start. Accusations of witchcraft and mistrust festered, particularly from Samuel's mother. Despite these challenges, the two remained together for several years and eventually had 2 children. In 2009, Samuel legally married Mary Ngugi, a fellow marathon runner, making her his second wife. He also fathered a child with his mistress, Judy Wambui, and maintained a relationship with Jane Duda. The household was complex, with constant tension between the women and disputes over Samuel's attention and resources. In December 2010, the situation escalated. An argument with Teresa led Samuel to threaten her with an illegally acquired firearm. A security guard was injured during the altercation, and Teresa fled, reporting the incident to police. Charges were filed but later withdrawn. By February 2011, Samuel publicly reconciled with Teresa, yet old patterns persisted and his extramarital relationships continued. On the evening of May 14, 2011, Samuel visited his pregnant mistress, Judy Wambui, before calling Jane Nduta to meet him at a local restaurant. Already intoxicated, he later returned to his Nyahururu home, where Teresa had also arrived. What unfolded inside those walls remains the subject of intense scrutiny. Reports indicate that Teresa discovered Samuel asleep with Jane Nduta. A struggle ensued, during which Jane allegedly tried to strangle Teresa. Fearing for her safety, Teresa locked herself in a bedroom, refusing to open the gate. It was at this moment that Samuel fell from the balcony. He landed heavily on the ground, sustaining critical injuries. He was rushed to Nyahururu District Hospital, but despite medical intervention, he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The news sent shockwaves across Kenya and the athletics community. Samuel's mother accused Teresa of murder, filing court motions to prevent the burial. A post-mortem revealed blunt force trauma to the back of Samuel's head and high levels of alcohol in his system. Samuel was laid to rest on June 11, 2011, but the questions surrounding his death did not end there. An inquest began in 2014 and stretched nearly a decade. Over 30 witnesses testified, including Samuel's widow, his mother, Jane Nduta, and various figures from the athletics world. Toxicology reports confirmed the high levels of alcohol in his system, and investigators noted that crucial CCTV footage from the night was missing. The case was fraught with uncertainty, speculation, and public scrutiny. Finally, in October 2023, the inquest concluded. Samuel Wanjiru's death was ruled an accident. There was no evidence to suggest murder or suicide. The combination of alcohol intoxication and impaired judgment was determined to be the most likely cause of the fatal fall. Samuel Wanjiru's story is one of extraordinary talent, unrelenting ambition, and complex personal struggles. He achieved remarkable feats on the global stage, bringing pride to Kenya and inspiring a new generation of athletes. Yet behind the medals and records, he faced challenges that ultimately shaped the final chapter of his life. His death is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fragility of life, the unpredictable consequences of personal choices, and the complex realities behind fame and fortune. Samuel Wanjiru burned bright, and though his life was tragically cut short, his legacy endures. He is remembered not only for his athletic brilliance, but also as a symbol of the human story that often accompanies extraordinary achievement. Samuel Wanjiru's death was a cautionary tale of personal turmoil and unexpected loss. Across southern Africa, another story would grip the world, this time involving love, fame, and a fatal mistake. The shooting of Reeva Steenkamp by Paralympic athlete Oscar Pistorius shocked South Africa and ignited a global debate on responsibility, justice, and accountability. He was a hero, a champion celebrated around the world for his speed, skill, and determination. She was a rising star, admired for her beauty, intelligence, and ambition. But on a quiet night in a suburban home, everything changed. 4 gunshots, a life lost, and a nation left in shock. This is a story of fame, love, and tragedy. A night that would alter everything forever. On the night of February 14, 2013, police and paramedics received a call from a man claiming that someone had been shot inside his home. Minutes later, they found a young woman dead behind a locked bathroom door. This discovery set off a chain of events no one could have anticipated. The events of this case took place in Pretoria, one of South Africa's 3 capital cities, known for its government institutions and residential neighborhoods. It was in one of these suburban homes that emergency services were called following a reported shooting. When responders arrived, the house was quiet and the doors locked. Officers and paramedics carefully secured the scene before beginning their assessment, knowing that every detail could be crucial. Their attention soon focused on a locked bathroom. There they found a young woman who had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The residence belonged to Oscar Pistorius, born on November 22, 1986, in Pretoria, South Africa. He was the son of Henke and Sheila Pistorius and had an older brother named Carl. Born with fibular hemimelia, his legs were amputated below the knee at 11 months old. Oscar overcame his disability to become a world-class sprinter, winning multiple Paralympic gold medals and setting world records before competing in the Olympics. He attended Pretoria Boys High School and later studied financial management at the University of Pretoria. The victim was Reeva Steenkamp, born on August 19, 1983 in Cape Town. She was the daughter of Barry and June Steenkamp and had an older half-brother, Adam. Raised in Port Elizabeth, Reeva studied law at the University of Port Elizabeth and pursued a career in modeling and television. Known for her intelligence, independence, and ambition, she was gradually gaining recognition as both a model and media personality. On the night of February 14, 2013, Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp were at his suburban Pretoria home. Earlier that evening, they had an argument. Pistorius had a history of firearm incidents, including firing a gun from a moving car, providing context to his use of firearms that night. Later, 4 shots were fired through a locked bathroom door, hitting Reeva Steenkamp. Pistorius later claimed that he mistook her for an intruder. Emergency responders found Reeva inside the locked bathroom, but she was already dead. Authorities confirmed that Pistorius had placed the emergency call. Police secured the scene, collected evidence, and began interviews. Every detail, from the position of doors and windows to the trajectory of the bullets, was meticulously documented for the investigation. Oscar Pistorius was taken into custody and questioned regarding the events leading up to the shooting. Witness statements were gathered, including accounts from neighbors and staff. Every observation and piece of evidence was recorded to reconstruct the events of that night accurately. Following the assessment of the scene, Oscar Pistorius was arrested by the South African Police Service. He was charged with murder in connection with the shooting of Reeva Steenkamp and held pending further investigation. Due to Pistorius's prominence as a Paralympic athlete, the case attracted widespread national and international media coverage. Every development, from the arrest to evidence collection, was closely reported, and public interest remained intense throughout the investigation. Investigators compiled forensic reports, witness statements, and other critical evidence to form a complete picture of the night of February 14, 2013. This meticulous work laid the groundwork for the formal trial. The trial began on March 3, 2014, at the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, presided over by Judge Thokozile Masipa and assisted by 2 assessors. Pistorius faced charges of murder, illegal possession of ammunition, and reckless endangerment. During the trial, several key witnesses came forward. Michelle Berger, a university lecturer, testified that she heard a woman's screams followed by gunshots from Pistorius's residence. Her husband corroborated the sequence of events. Neighbors reported hearing noises consistent with a domestic altercation, including screams and shouting. Forensic pathologist Gert Simon detailed the injuries sustained by Reeva Steenkamp, explaining that she had been struck by hollow-point bullets in multiple areas. The defense argued that Pistorius had mistaken Steenkamp for an intruder and fired out of fear for his safety. They contended that some of the noises heard were from Pistorius breaking the bathroom door. Expert witness Roger Dixon suggested that Reeva may have been struck while near the door, but his conclusions were based on photographs rather than direct analysis. The prosecution challenged these claims, emphasizing that Pistorius's actions, retrieving a firearm and moving through the house, indicated recklessness. Chief Prosecutor Gary Nell argued that witness testimonies and forensic evidence pointed to a deliberate act rather than an accident. On September 11, 2014, Pistorius was convicted of culpable homicide and sentenced to 5 years. The defense's claim that he acted in the heat of the moment was accepted. However, the prosecution appealed. In December 2015, the Supreme Court of Appeal found Pistorius guilty of murder. Judge Masipa resentenced him in July 2016 to 6 years, later increased to 13 years and 5 months in November 2017. He became eligible for parole in 2023. Throughout this process, the trial and appeals were closely followed by the public and media worldwide. Every argument, testimony, and piece of evidence was scrutinized. The murder of Reeva Steenkamp and the trial of Oscar Pistorius captured global attention. From the emergency call to courtroom proceedings, news outlets reported extensively. Public reaction was intense, sparking debates on gun ownership, domestic violence, and accountability of public figures. Vigils and memorials were held in Reeva's honor. Even years later, the Pistorius trial remains referenced in discussions about legal precedent, media coverage of crime, and the responsibilities of athletes and public figures. The story of Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp is a tragic reminder of how quickly a life can change and how a single night can alter the course of many others forever. Beyond the headlines, it challenges us to think about accountability, responsibility, and the consequences of our actions. Reeva's life, full of ambition, intelligence, and promise, will always be remembered. These 5 stories reveal the hidden struggles behind athletic glory. Some athletes, like Malebogo Molefhe, survived and turned their pain into purpose. Others, like Agnes Tirop and Cheptegei, were tragically silenced by those closest to them. And in cases like Samuel Wanjiru and Reeva Steenkamp, fame, personal choices, and complex relationships led to devastating outcomes. These tragedies are heartbreaking, but they are far from the only ones. Across the continent and beyond, athletes face danger, abuse, and personal struggles, sometimes as victims, sometimes as perpetrators, often hidden from public view. These stories are more than headlines. They remind us how quickly triumph can turn to tragedy and why issues like domestic violence, mental health, and accountability can never be ignored. That brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you for watching. Your support truly means a lot. Share your thoughts on these cases in the comments. And if there's a story you think we should cover, let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you on the next case. Peace.